I do want to take a minute and thank all of you who've reached out last week and over the weekend over the loss of my little gremlin buddy, Tiberius. He was a really special little dude. I'd never had a pet like him. He was just shy of his 11th birthday, and he had kidney disease. He went into renal failure, and there just wasn't anything that could be done. And Kevin and I knew that, he'd been hospitalized a couple of times for crystals. I mean, we knew that this is what would take him, but you always think you have more time than you do. And the thing about Tiberius was like when I was a little girl, I had this one stuffed animal and I just loved it. I didn't like dolls, but I liked to play with my stuffies. And I used to wish that this stuffy would come to life. And then Tiberius came into my life and he was like that stuffy every night, curled up next to me, head tucked under my chin like a little teddy bear. And he was the boss of the house. And even though he was small and peculiar, he ran this place. He ran it like a union shop. And he was a little bit fragile. Max took care of Tibbs a lot. And so
Yep.
you had seen him
Yeah.
decline,
Yeah.
I know, over the past year. So we ultimately went with, we had the mobile vet come to our house because Tibbs never liked the car. And he was so unwell at the end and so fragile that I couldn't bear to take him out in the cold and then to a cold, bright place where strangers would handle him. I just didn't want that. So we had the emergency vet come, and the kindness and compassion. And I just spent a lot of time thinking that there's so much anger in the world right now. Like, people are so pissed off about everything. And if you spend any time on social media, you can't help but feel like your neighbors are ready to come at each other with pitchforks. And we don't have the luxury of not being on social media, so we can't hide from it. And sometimes it's so overwhelming that you begin mistaking that for people. Do you know what I mean by that? You begin
Yeah.
mistaking the ugliness on social media
Yeah.
for the reality of
Yeah, it's true.
humanity. And so you're so braced for hostility and snarkiness and pissiness and anger that when you get the opposite, it shocks you into speechlessness. And we had this wonderful vet, Dr. Dane, who came, and he's a cat guy himself, and he had some experience with renal failure, and he was just so kind. He was so kind. And it was a hard day for me and Kev. Like, we just sat and wept on the couch because this was our little man, we were not ready to let him go. But Dr. Dane was so compassionate and patient and all the time you needed and answered every question. And it made something that was really hard into something that was bearable for the simple fact that you didn't feel like a freak or a weirdo for your feelings, that, your sadness was validated by another human being who just took the extra time, that little bit of extra time, to be kind. And so I was a wreck last Wednesday, and Lamar and Max and Heather and Tony did happy hour because I just could not get myself together. And then I had to do that thing that, as a parent, you don't want to do. You don't want to bring your kids news that's going to break their heart. And I had to find my iPhone for hours, waiting for one daughter to get home from work and the other daughter to get back to her dorm from school classes, and then make those calls. It was a really hard day, but throughout every moment of it, I kept reflecting back on this complete stranger who came to our house and was kind. And it reaffirmed for me, like, y'all do you, okay? Like, y'all be you. But it reaffirmed for me that I'm going to be paying attention, and I'm always going to remember to grab that door for the person coming in behind me at the Walgreens. And if someone's struggling, offer help.
Instant access to the podcast, fun size, and more with the free Bob and Sheri app.
Just a minute ago, Lamar told us that he had a pet raccoon as a boy, that he got it from the same uncle who gave them gators and on the same day. So Your uncle
right.
pulled up to your house in Hartwell, Georgia, with a raccoon and an alligator in the car.
All right. And while you're at it, go ahead and ask me what my uncle's name was.
Jim Tom?
Yep. Jim Tom.
There we
sure
go.
was.
There we go.
Jim Tom.
We should have known. This is Jim Tom shenanigans, y'all.
He lived down in Fargo, which is really close to the Okefenokee Swamp. And that's
You're making all of
I
this
know.
up.
No,
You're
no,
making
I'm
all
not.
of this up.
You know, I know this begins to make me sound like some country buffoon. I mean,
what would make you think that? I mean, who doesn't have an Uncle Jim Tom who lives down in the Okefenokee Swamp and who's coming to pay a call with a gator and a coon in the car?
Uncle Jim Tom was a really cool guy. But he had this. I go ahead and finish this out. I'm gonna feel like we're gonna start cooking cornbread in a minute. But his right ear was all shriveled up because my cousin Chip, when they was fishing, he drew back the rod and he hooked the hook in Uncle Jim Tom's ear and pulled it and
Lamar,
it messed his ear up.
Lamar, you ain't new here. You know this is but a 4-hour show.
Sheri, we're never going to get to the story.
But yes, I did have a raccoon. They came up and they had caught a 4-foot alligator and they put it in like a cage and then put it in a big bucket, a big wash tub. And he brought it up, but he had also, I think a raccoon mom had got hit by a car or whatever, and he found her kits, and he brought one of them up to me. So he brought them, the raccoon and the alligator at the same time. So, yeah.
I guess that's why they used to say that Jim Tom, he got him a heart as big as the Okefenokee Swamp. He did rescuing those little orphan raccoon kids.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Where did the raccoon sleep with you, like a cat or a dog, or kept
It stayed in a box in my bedroom when it was young. But yeah,
that's a good life.
Did
you poke some holes in the box for air?
No, we left the box open at the top. He didn't climb out. But once he got big enough, yeah, he slept in the bed. He was fine.
Sign up for our newsletter. We never spam you.
Never did.
Get Bob and Sheri exclusives. Just go to bobandsheri.com.
This past weekend, Carla and I went camping for our anniversary. And so we're camping it's a very nice little campground. There's only probably about 40 spots up there, and the people are just fantastic. And so we're up there and we're having a great time. So I'm taking Darby out for the last time before we turn in, and it's about 9:30 or something like that. And so she and I are walking the park. And so I pass by this empty spot, and I see this square black thing sitting there, and I thought, what is that? I knew it was something metal or something. So I go over there because I'm thinking it's going to be one of those vape things or whatever, but it wasn't. It was a walkie-talkie. And when you find a walkie-talkie, there's a certain, there's something going on here because somebody else has got the other one. I mean, nobody has just one walkie-talkie. There's more walkie-talkies. So I pick it up and look around and I go, hello, 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 hello. Nothing. I get nothing. I'm like, well, if it belongs to the people here that are running the place, they're all in the bed and they probably don't keep their walkie-talkies on all night. Although if I had a walkie-talkie, I'd keep it on all night. So I went back to the place and I pulled it out of my jacket and Carl was like, why do you have a walkie-talkie? And she was accusatory. Like, why do you have a walkie-talkie? I said, what do you think? It's a walkie-talkie. I said, I just found it. I said, there has to be another walkie-talkie or it's just all walkie. It's no talkie. I said, so so I'm assuming it belongs to somebody here. So I cut it off and I cut it back on and it goes, channel one. I'm like, okay. So I cut it off to save the battery. So I get up the next day and so I turn it back on and it says channel 1. So I just set it there and I'm fixing me some coffee and all of a sudden a female voice comes on. It says radio check. And I'm like, oh, this sounds interesting. And then I hear 2 or 3 other voices. Gotcha. Radio check 2, radio check 3, and whatever. So then.
Is this like some sort of secret government operation, Lamar? This is so exciting.
or maybe we're going to knock over a bank. Oh, I'm in.
Yeah,
Whatever we're
yeah.
doing, I don't care. I got to find. So I pick it up and I go, hello, hello, hello. And the first lady's voice goes, who is this? I said, this is Lamar. And she goes, and I said, I'm at spot number 36. And I said, I found this last night, and I'm assuming it must be yours since you and I are talking. She goes, yes, it is. She said, how can we get it back? And I said, well, I can walk it up there, or you can, come get it. Doesn't matter to me. She said, we'll be down there in just a minute. So I said, okay. So I cut it off, and I wish we would have talked some more, because talking on a walkie-talkie it feels good. It feels like you're important or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I like talking on this microphone, but if it was a walkie-talkie, it would just be cool.
As a kid, it was the coolest.
It was the coolest. It was the coolest. And so, anyway, so I go outside. So here comes this guy. He's driving a golf cart. He comes down. And he goes, man, thank you so much. That's mine. Where did you find it? And I told him where I found it. He goes, oh, my gosh. I said, was you going to have to pay for it? I said, I'm pretty sure it's expensive. He goes, no, worse than that. He said, me and my wife got in a big fight this morning because I thought she lost it. I said, what do you mean? Because I told my wife, you've lost my walkie-talkie, and I got to have that walkie-talkie. What did you do with it? And she goes, I ain't seen your dang walkie-talkie. He goes, well, you're the last one that saw it. And he says, oh, my gosh. I said, well, what's going to happen? And they live on the site there. He goes, well, I'm going to drive down here and have to go in and tell her that she didn't lose the walkie-talkie, that I lost the walkie-talkie. So I piddled around outside doing some stuff, and so I seen him coming back down. So he come back down. I stepped out there and I flagged him over. I said, how'd it go? He said, pretty good so far. When I went in the house, she was on the phone. So I went ahead and left. I don't have to deal with this afternoon. So I don't know whatever comes. But I imagine he's going to have a hard time. Yeah, he said, man, I was adamant that she had lost my walkie-talkie.
Leave us a talk back with the free Bob and Sheri app.
Hi, this is Megan in Georgia. I'm calling in reference to Lamar talking about finding a fingernail in his coleslaw. It's not exactly the same, but it's relevant, I promise. So I'm a physical therapist assistant. I used to work in an outpatient clinic, and one of the things that we did for some patients was an infrared treatment for neuropathy, often because of diabetes. And so the way it would work is the patient would come in and we would have the tech set them up, and they'd put little plastic bags over their feet to protect the skin, and then the little boots for the infrared lighting, and then we would go in and turn it on and the treatment would start. So I went in one day after a patient had finished the treatment, and I'm taking his little boots off, and I take the bag off, and something falls and hits the table. And I look down and I think, oh God, this man's toe has fallen off.
Oh, no.
And it's on the table, which is, not completely unheard of in some circumstances. I'm like, what am I going to do? And then with further inspection, I realized it was actually a fingernail, like a press-on fingernail that was real cute. So I just kind of quietly raked it off into the trash can and just said, okay, thank you, sir. We'll see you next time. Have a great day. I went back out to where we would all stand around the podium while we waited and treated patients. And the tech had her hands up on the podium, and she had such a cute little set of, almost 10 press-on fingernails. She was missing the ring finger. So I pointed at it, and I said, so I just found this fingernail in the bag with the patient's slit. Let's maybe be a little more careful next time, please. So all in all, could have been worse, but still mildly horrifying for a few minutes. Anyway, thanks, y'all. Y'all are doing a great job. Love the show. Thanks for still being with us and still taking us through each day. Thanks. Goodbye.
Until you put that fingernail in your mouth. Until you put it in your mouth and you spit it out. Now we got something. I was in a crossroads in my life. I was in a crossroads. I had a decision to make. Either I never touch another bite of coleslaw for my entire life, or I walk out of that restaurant never to return. And I did. I walked out because I wasn't giving up the coleslaw.
You never went back?
Never. They closed not too long after that. Let you know how many times I ate there a week. So, yeah.
I am in a ball rocking back and forth. Like, I'm just so horrified.
Me and you both.
I'm so horrified. I think once you, I'm impressed that you could forgive coleslaw, because coleslaw is one of those things that just the nature of the beast. I mean, anything could be happening in there.
Coleslaw is innocent. It did not commit a crime.
How long did it take you, be truthful, after this event? So you never went back to that restaurant. Completely understand, full respect. Accidents happen. They probably had no idea. But how long before you stopped taking your fork and raking it through the coleslaw that you got the next time?
Well, the first 4 or 5 coleslaws that I ate, I made my own self by hand and made sure that my fingernails were still on my fingers. But there was a guy eating with me. He was riding with me that day. I was on the beer truck. He was riding with me, and when I pulled it out of my mouth, I wrapped it in a napkin and I said, "Finish your lunch. I'll meet you in the truck. Don't worry about it. Nothing you've done. Everything's great. I'll meet you in the truck." I let him finish his meal. I got out there and sat in the truck and tried to keep him gagging.
Oh,
And he come out there and he said, "What happened?" I told him. He goes, "Why didn't you tell me?" I said, "Because you didn't order the coleslaw. No point in telling you. I mean, you had a great dinner, so let it go." But oh God, it was horrible.
one of my little best friend when I was a kid out west, her mom called us into the house one day. We were making a giant snow fort out behind their house. And in Wyoming in the wintertime, you can make you a giant snow fort. And this was really a work of art. We had been spending days on this thing. And she called us in the house to give us a snack. And she handed us each a raw hot dog with the bottom of it wrapped in a napkin to hold on to it. And there is nothing that hits the spot more when you're playing in the snow in the middle of the winter than a cold raw hot dog.
I
But,
love a hot dog, cold raw.
cold raw. Bit into it, and there was this weird white thing in it. And I guessed my face. She said, "Well, honey, what is it?" And I showed her, and she said, and she had her cigarette going. She took her cigarette out of her mouth and said, "That's just a hot dog bone. That's not going to hurt you."